Hey, it's Sandra Pike from Roll Page Atlantic and the Pike Group, and today I am with the boys. And we've had some conversations prior to starting this, and again, the market is just so different, and not just for the consumer, but even for us as real estate agents here on the ground. So before we get into our topic of conversation, the cat is back again, Roy. I'll get you, Chris, to start off first and just, tell us a little bit of some information about you and your elevator pitch in 20 seconds.
All right, 20-second elevator pitch. First of all, Chris Peters, Royal Page Atlantic. Been involved with real estate going on 11 years, quite heavily involved on the organized side of real estate with both CREA and our provincial association, NSAR. Committed to helping my buyers and sellers sell homes throughout the HRM.
Good job. Mr. Richard.
Yeah, Richard Payne, 10 years now in the business. Halifax Homes and Lifestyles at EXP Realty. Biggest thing we're focusing on right now is educating buyers and sellers as to what to do with this market. So that's what we're spending our time on.
Awesome, thank you. And Roy.
Roy Thomas with Sutton Group Professional Realty, been an agent since the 1990s. And I work with a lot of seniors who are looking to downsize and go from the long-term family home into something that's more suitable for their needs.
And Ian.
Going on my 14th year at Royal Page Atlantic. My name is Ian Angus, and I've been assisting buyers and sellers in the BLT and HRM area for almost 14 years now.
And you're pretty styling today with your Boyne Clark.
I dressed up for everybody, yeah.
Oh, God love you.
Casual
So we
Friday.
so guys, we were just having a great conversation, and we were talking about, talking about the market in general. Was it a seller's market or was it a buyer's market? And by all rights, every one of us would say it's a seller's market. But when we look at the inventory and how much is being, has sold since the start of the pandemic, like we are selling more houses now than we ever have. So what are you seeing in the market that's been difficult for you, Ian? What's changed for you in this type of market, or what are you doing differently?
What am I doing differently, or what changes have I seen in the market?
I would say, well, both, either or.
Okay, so changes in the market that I've seen, and I think part of the reason why inventory levels are as low as they are is because not only do we have an ongoing pandemic, but we have a lack of inventory with regards to new construction that usually alleviates pressure on the market. Okay, so if you're going to buy new construction right now, you're, as you know, Sandra, you're 8 to 14 months out before that's going to be ready. You have people realizing because of the pandemic that they can work remotely from home. So they are moving back from Alberta and Ontario and buying homes here, which is, creating competition. And also we have an average age of population in Nova Scotia is over 50. So a lot of people are moving from the outskirts of Nova Scotia into the HRM area for better amenities such as hospitals and restaurants and all that kind of thing. Not Absolutely. To mention we have people from the States coming up where their dollar goes 30% better. And we have people from Europe and Asia coming over as well. So it's just all come together at the same time. And yes. It's creating a very difficult market for buyers. Now, right. On the other hand, one of the issues I'm seeing is that not certain property, but a lot of the properties are being listed lower than the buyer is expecting to get, right? To create that competition. Okay, so that's making it more difficult for people. If agents aren't having the proper conversation with their clients, that they need to realize that this is going to go over the asking price because they're not expecting to accept an asking price, then it's going to be very difficult for those buyers and that agent to find them a home if they're not having the preemptive conversation before they even go out there. They need to
Absolutely.
set expectations properly. We just had our meeting on Tuesday, the office meeting, and the average sale price is $56,000. That's just the average is $56,000 over asking. So if you're looking at something at $299, you need to think, okay, 360 is where it's going to go on average. What are we willing to do?
Yeah,
But,
absolutely.
you know, and then you have some agents listing them way too low to create even more competition, which you don't need to do. Like
No, I agree. I agree.
Fairview listing at 250, 60 offers. Well, that's why you have 60 offers, because 20 of those offers weren't educated properly by their agents to say, there's no way you're going to get this at 250 to 300 or even to 350. Right.
So you're bringing up a good point there. So Roy, you know, that particular home in Fairview got over 60 offers, and I believe it was an inexperienced agent, which is, I mean, that's okay. But what would you say, I mean, about the industry now? And there has been an influx since the pandemic. You know, have you seen, you know, that in your office or in the industry?
Well,
About
see,
how
I'm
many-
not stating that the listing agent was inexperienced. I have no
No,
idea.
I
who
want to
the
talk
listing
about the
agent
buyer
is.
agents as well.
Right, the buyer's
and I'll
agents
get-
need to have the conversations with their, and not just new agents, it's every age of agents. They can be in 25 years, 30 years, whatever. They all need to have the proper conversation. It's like the discussion we had the other day regarding preemptive offers. In my opinion, there is absolutely no reason why an agent should take a preemptive offer. If you've said on your listing that you're taking offers until 4 or 5 days down the road, I would say, and again, my opinion, 90% of the time, that preemptive offer is still going to be there 4 or 5 days down the road. There's not enough inventory for there to be choices, other choices. And if they're serious about it, they'll most likely offer the same amount, if not more, once they know they're competing. I have
You're very
yet to
passionate
take,
today, Ian.
in 2.5 years, I have never taken in the last 2.5 years, I've never taken a preemptive offer, ever.
So Roy, what is your thought on the preemptive offers, or, you know, are agents being trained to educate their clients, whether it be a new agent, as Ian says, or an agent who's been around? Just because you've been around a long time doesn't mean you have the experience. So what are your thoughts, Roy?
First off, on the preemptive offers, I would generally agree with Ian that you're probably better to wait until the deadline, because that preemptive offer still will be there in all likelihood. I've never saw anybody pull a preemptive offer yet. I actually had one agent increase their offer. They gave us a preemptive. We said, no, we're going to wait. They came back at the deadline and it was a higher offer. So I generally agree, you're probably better waiting. I did take one preemptive last year. I called the seller. It was a very strong offer and they wanted to not to lose it. So I said, okay. I made some phone calls, ended up with 16 more offers in the next 3 hours. 3 were equal to that preemptive offer, but we still took the preemptive one for a particular reason. But generally, I agree, you're probably better off waiting until the deadline. The other thing is worth noting about educating the agents, or agents educating their clients, is that, let's say you're getting 10 offers on a property. Realistically, you're probably only looking at 2 to 4 of those offers that you're going to be considering from. The other ones you're immediately going to eliminate because they're just simply too low on price. And there might be one that's the only one you're considering. One is head and shoulders above the rest. So those agents that wrote the offers that were far too low, they really probably didn't have a conversation with their clients to say, look, there's 10 offers. You need to be at least at X to even have a chance to get it. Like Ian said, if the house is priced at $299, you need to be somewhere in the 360 and up range to have a realistic chance of getting it.
So, Richard, how about that buyer who has written 20 offers? You know, is that onus on us that a client is writing 20 offers?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, it comes down to that education, and you know, we spoke about it sometime in the middle of last year. I think me and you, when you were talking about get specific on your area. Like HRM is a big market for us all to play in. So if you've got a client that only wants to be in Colby, only wants to be in Bedford, only wants to be in Eastern Passage, respectively, they don't really care about what Central Halifax or Peninsula is doing price-wise. They only really care, if I'm shopping in Eastern Passage, I just want to know what's going on in Eastern Passage, because that's really where I'm going to be writing offers. So you just do a little bit more education with the buyer about, if we're going to go and shop in Eastern Passage, this is the average price point. This is what they're going for over asking price. This house, same as the ones we just looked at, went this much over asking price. And then you still have to play the game of, okay, if it's me versus 3 other offers, it's a different price versus me and 15 other offers. So there's always going to be here's the average over asking price. Here's what we think makes sense. Now, what's your walk away number? And that's the hardest thing that we're trying to figure out now with a lot of the buyers is, where's the point of this hurts so much that there's no way I'm going to accept. If somebody gets it for $1,000 more than that, good luck, have fun, you did really well. So that's the key thing, is more centralized market knowledge. Like if I'm selling or buying or whatever in Fall River, Hammonds Plains, Upper Tantallon, Bedford area, I'm not being silly to the people that are selling in Dartmouth, but I don't really care what's going on in Dartmouth, because that's not where I'm trying to buy. So why would I care what Dartmouth's doing? So we're always doing a lot more specialized local knowledge of what's going on in that area, what makes sense.
Okay, so Chris, so I'm going to take it away from the buyer perspective right now. You were recently involved in multiple offers over in Eastern Passage. Was it the deciding factor for your seller? Was it necessarily the highest offer that you received that you directed your sellers to take, or how did you and your seller, how did you guide them to select the offer that they did on that property that you had?
Well, I think like Roy said earlier, we had 17 offers on that property, and almost right off the bat, based on what that price range is, you can almost eliminate probably 80% of those offers, unfortunately, for those buyers. And from a seller perspective, you generally are going to focus probably on, I usually look at the top 3 to 5 as far as what their pricing is. At the end of the day, my duty to my seller client is to get them and sell their home for as much money as possible, but under the best terms and conditions. So I want to ensure that that those terms and conditions with regards to how quickly are they looking to close, how strong are they financially with regards to what they're looking for and putting down as a deposit. So if I have 2 offers that are fairly similar, but one has a $20,000 deposit and one has a $2,000 deposit, well, that $20,000 deposit shows me and my clients that that buyer has a lot more financial security as well as serious tied interest in this property. Yeah, if they were to walk away, they get that back. But the fact that they're willing to tie up 20 grand and can produce that within a couple of days of acceptance, it shows a much stronger commitment to their offer and to the property.
I agree.
So, and then,
oh, sorry, go ahead, Chris.
no, and then a lot of times it's going to come down to what the price point is. If there's a couple of $1,000 difference, then yeah, they're going to look a lot more at the various conditions. If there's tens of thousands of dollars of difference, most sellers aren't going to walk away with that much money left on the table. So when you're seeing significant price differences, then a seller is usually going to lean towards a home that is offering them the most money, if not the soonest closing period, because that means that lessens what their carrying costs are for closing earlier than later.
And Ian, so, there was an agent in our office, they had received 44 offers on a property. I know at some points, there was talk about blind bidding. What are your thoughts about how the the competition here is in Halifax right now with the homes. Like, do you think there should be a different form of how people should be notified of the offers, or should it be more transparent?
No, I've liked the way it is right now. I don't think we need to go to, I know they've been talking about going towards a system similar to what's going on in Australia, where you have an auction type system. I don't think that's the way to go. I understand buyers' concerns when they're, they realize, well, they don't typically find out, but if they have bid 30 grand over the next highest bidder, they don't know that, right?
Yeah.
And that's the concern that people are having. Yes, okay, I won the house, but did I have to go that high?
Yes, of course.
I think
Yeah.
in the auction system, and I've watched some shows and watched these actual auctions take place. They're standing in front of the house and people are bidding on it and stuff like that. I guess I'm used to the system that we have so much that I can't see how that would work here. Especially with our population too, right?
Yeah, no, I agree.
Now, Beth, I would just want to make one point about what Chris was talking about too. With regards to conditions on offers, I think it's mainly coming down to price. Price is the most important thing. With regards to a closing date, I usually determine when I'm listing a property, I ask my client what the preferred closing date is, because they can dictate as a seller in this market what closing date they want, right? That buyers want to make their offer as tidy as possible. So if they're going to call and ask, what's the closing date? What closing date do they want? So instead of 50 agents calling me asking what closing date they want, we already put it out there when we list the property, what closing date they want. So that's taken care of. And then you look at conditions. So financing, inspection, lawyer approval. Lawyer approval is going to be there in most cases. Sometimes there won't be a financing clause, and sometimes there's not a clause for inspection, which I don't recommend, but anyway. So it really comes down to just, what they're offering is typically the most important thing.
So you're talking about conditions, Roy. Now we have a new buyer waiver form that just came into effect in January. And how are you proceeding with that, or has it affected your business? Is it making it more difficult? How is that working, with yours?
I think it's first off, I'm counseling the sellers that until we get the 408, this deal is not done. That's what you need. Same with the buyers. Until you're willing to send that 408 over, you don't have a deal. But it's got some interesting things in there. For example, if you represent the seller and the buyer did a building inspection and found some issues, and let's say they asked the seller for a $3,000 concession, the seller agreed to the $3,000 concession, typically that would firm up the inspection clause. Now, technically it doesn't, because it still has to be the buyer sending over the 408. So technically the buyer could still raise an issue on the inspection after even you've agreed to it. Unlikely, but it could. So it's basically, you got to wait to get that form, and hopefully they don't send it over late.
So we just
sorry, Sandra, I would say, I think part of it though is how you write that clause in. So even in the 408, you can include that condition of the $3,000 related to the home inspection, and also clearly state that all conditions have been satisfied. I think it's a matter of the various languages that we use, because that 408, it's an open form. So you can put multiple things in there to satisfy all conditions from the buyers.
What's your opinion of this, Richard? We received an offer on one of our properties the other day, and the buyer agent had struck out clause 408, which is the buyer waiver. They took it out completely. And didn't we get so they still had their lawyer review, and we ended up getting an amendment yesterday evening extending that lawyer review for another 24 hours. So Is that something that, my agent should have noticed that the buyer waiver was struck out, or should an agent be allowed to strike out that waiver? Or,
Well,
yes,
it's when you look at the forms, like condition 4 is all of your conditions. So financing, inspection, insurance, in conditional of you reviewing information you've asked for the seller to provide. So 24 months of power history, taxes, whatever you ask for in section 3 is also a condition in section 4, plus the other stuff. So I think agents are being smart in terms of making their offer as attractive as possible, but keeping that lawyer review condition in there, because you can use that lawyer review for an extra 24 hours. Now, the trick is read what the lawyer review condition actually says. It doesn't say anything about the fact that the lawyer is there to review the property information. So what's actually registered on title, restrictive covenants, easements, rights of way. It's also to review the actual offer. So arguably, is the lawyer taking an extra 24 hours just to look at the agreement and make sure it's in his client's best interest? Because that seems like what they're starting to do. I mean, we've written many offers this January, and I think on only one of them, no, actually on none of them did I have nothing in section 4. Like, it was either, yes, we want financing, yes, we want inspection. Typically now agents from a listing point of view are getting good at putting all of the other documents on property on Paragon, our MLS system. So we can actually look at the property disclosure. We've got the tax bill, we've got the power bill. So I'm not really having those as conditions of my offers anymore, because I'm like, well, you've seen them on the basis of you writing an offer. We're happy with those. So just don't make them a condition anymore. And even sign the property disclosure statement and send it back with your offer. So it's one less thing that the seller can actually say, oh, I've got to get them to sign. And it gives you some information about property condition as well. So with the disclosure statement, but I think definitely I would be very cautious and have a good conversation with a buying agent if I saw an offer and there was like section 4 buyer conditions completely crossed out, but still had the lawyer one. I think it comes back to me having smart enough sense almost to ring that buying agent up and say, what's your intention with no conditions? And then you've still got a lawyer review, because the lawyer review, in theory, maybe you could do it in 24 hours or less. Shouldn't, like, I know Ian's sporting the Boyne Clark hat, so maybe he can answer because he seems like he's a lawyer at the moment. But when you look at that, a lawyer shouldn't take 7 days, 6 days to review the agreement of purchase and sale and go and check out on title what's going on with the property. So I think
24 to
people are
48
using
hours
the
max.
The
condition wrong.
lawyer review clause, though, is also for the benefit of the seller. The seller's lawyer also has the ability to review it. So for the buyer to waive the buyer's lawyer review is one thing, but they really can't waive the clause unless the seller is willing to also give up their lawyer's review of the offer.
Chris, were you around when this form was coming into place, working with the NSAR?
I was, but this was a form that, remember, all of our forms are not created by NSAR, they're created by the commission.
So why didn't they include why wouldn't the lawyer approval clause or the lawyer clause, why is that not included in form 408?
I think it's to Roy's point, is that you can't waive because section 4 is the buyer waiving their conditions as far as what they want. Clause 8 is both for the benefit of the buyer and the benefit of the seller. So a buyer cannot waive my rights as a seller to the lawyer clause.
Okay, well, that's a good clarity. So there's been, several new agents who have joined the industry since the pandemic. My thought of the market since the pandemic, this is probably being in the industry now since 2010. It is the most difficult time that I've ever worked in the industry this year. Would anybody else find the industry, the industry was hard last year, but is it just me who thinks this year is very difficult? Does anybody else feel the same way?
It's not just you, Sandra.
No,
I'm with
not at
you.
all. I totally agree. Like that property that we were talking about earlier. Yes, it's 17 offers, and we've already heard that's not even necessarily high. We've heard of in the 60s and we've heard of in the 40s, but 17 offers, that means that's a lot of dialogue back and forth with 17 buyer's agents. That's 17 offers I got to present to my clients. Depending on me as the agent, that's 17 offers I'm responding back to the buyer's agents as rejects or letting them expire. That's a lot more work that you're spending with those offers and presenting them and reviewing them, as opposed to in the old days, say 2-3 years ago even, if I had a property that I listed today and I got an offer that night, I'm probably considering that offer that same night. So I'm dealing with the one offer. So I think it's a lot more work now than what we've ever done. So you're 100% right, Sandra.
Yeah. And I think from the buying point of view, it's just so much time now.
Yeah.
Like, you know, realistically, we probably all would look after like somewhere between 3 and 5 buyers at one particular time. One buyer gets their offer accepted, great, they go into conditional, and the level of activity with them drops a little bit. And so you take on one more. Right now, it's like, I'm looking at the whiteboard that I've got over there and I'm like, yeah, that's a lot of people we're trying to find houses for.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
so same here.
a lot
Ian,
of
you've been
kilometers on that
around.
car as well.
Oh yeah, no, I'm with you. Ian, you've been around a long time. What is one great attribute that you've seen when you've been working with buyer agents that you feel the consumer should consider when they are, you know, selecting a buyer agent to help them purchase a home? Like, what is something that really stands out that really impresses you when you're working with buyer agents?
Well, I mean, knowledge of the area, I think is a key component for finding a buyer's agent. Someone that knows the area well isn't going to create a big issue by arguing the fact that, you know, this house should be listed at this price and it's way overpriced or it's underpriced or whatever. Knowledge of the area, and then, you know, my personal opinion with a buyer's agent is that they check the listing cut. Every agent should be doing this, checking the listing cut properly, checking the documents tab, instructions to members, all that kind of stuff. Because most of the I'm not speaking for every agent, but I provide all the information my client has provided me in the documents tab or instructions to members. So
Okay,
you know what the closing date they want. You know what the tax bill is. You know what the heating cost is. Like, it's all there. But I still end up getting, you know, 10 to 20 calls asking me questions about information that's still there.
Yeah,
Okay, so
I agree with that. And Richard Payne made the comment earlier, like how many agents from the listing side are putting those documents up in Paragon. So if I've got the PDS, I've got the tax bill there, I've got the survey there, I've got the restrictive covenant, I've got pretty much every document there that you need that would satisfy clause 3, the seller's obligations. Why are you taking them all off in clause 3 and then still taking them off as buyer's conditions? I've already provided you with them. You should review them. So like Ian's right, like you need to have a good educated buyer's agent that knows what they're looking for, knows the area, knows where to get the materials, and is smart enough to make that offer clean.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I mean, we've become very detailed with our listings, but I love getting an offer in from an agent, and you know, the paperwork is filled out properly, and they paid attention. They looked at the details, and I mean, you guys know that I had a call from an agent, you know, wanting to know if the air conditioning gave cool air. You know, I want competent agents because when I see a competent agent on the other side, I am more, especially if their offer was, say, within like $1,000 of another agent that I don't know and their offer was sloppy. I want to work with that competent agent who, again, has checked the details, has everything listed there, and doesn't matter if they're new or not. It's just, I feel the competency is really important when you're sending your offers in. And Roy, you see anything different to that?
Yeah, my answer to that question would be experience. Using an agent's got experience, not necessarily just in the area that you want to buy, but that certainly is helpful. But just general experience, because you're right, when it comes down to an offer, some of them are so poorly written, you cringe if you have to take them. I've seen me do a counter offer, full page counter offer, just fixing problems and a mistake or mistakes in the offers. Not so much in this market, but I had neighbors one time give me an offer that was completely unenforceable. The buyer could have until day of closing and walked away and we had to give them the deposit back.
Wow.
So experience in writing a good strong offer, because I agree with your point, Sandra, when you get offers in and you're looking at them, and if there's two that are real close and you successfully work several deals with one agent and you don't know the other agent, the one that you work with and have a good history with, that person gets an edge.
Yeah.
Sandra,
earlier,
I had that exact experience just happen. I had 22 offers on a property and we had 3 offers that were basically identical. And it came to conditions, deposit, closing date, everything was the same. And they said, well, what agent do you feel is best to deal with? And I've dealt with all of them.
Yep.
And I gave them my opinion, and the buyers made, or sellers made the decision on who they chose. But
I just want to circle back to a topic that we were just talking about, and I don't know which one of you brought it up. I think it was you, Ian. And and Chris, you and I would have had this conversation a couple of weeks ago. So 81% of the properties that were sold, 81% of the properties that were sold in 2021 were sold at asking or over asking. And we talked about again in 2021 that the average over asking was $56,000. And I'm finding now that although that was the average, there were still, I think about, oh my goodness, there were still, numerous homes that sold $100,000 and over. And I'm finding now that even $100,000 in some areas of HRM is not even cutting it. For me to win an offer the other day, the property was listed at $639. I told my buyer at $639. I looked up what had sold, in that area recently, and the last house that sold was December, was at $729. Listed in around the same price. So I said to her $749, and anyway, so the agent, when she received all her offers, got back to us and said, I have 10 offers, and unfortunately, she did say that you are in the top 3, and which were, unfortunately, we can't do that anymore. But she said, you are in the top 3. Would you like to remain the same, or would you like to change? So, my client and I spoke about it, into something what you just said, Roy. We went in from 639, we went in at 815. And won the, and was able to secure the house. Now there was, in 2021, a property that was listed at $319,000 sold for $575,000 over asking. So Ian, you were on that call yesterday or Tuesday, whenever it was in our office. What are your thoughts of how that property was marketed?
well, I think I'm back to my point I made earlier in our conversation, is that I think some properties are being misrepresented, or maybe that's not the right word for it, but I think some agents are listing it far too low to create competition, and it's just far too much competition. I completely disagree with the agent you were talking about calling you up and saying, hey, you're in the top 3. Would you like to make any changes?
No, but she said that to everybody.
No, I know that, but I put out a listing. I say offers are due by 5 o'clock, and you have until 5 o'clock. I don't say at 5 o'clock, oh, I have 20 offers now. Would you like to make any changes? I update people throughout the day. We have 10 offers. We have 5 offers. There's some agents out there. I just noticed on a place in Clayton Park where they said, you're now in competing situation. They're not telling you how many offers there are. I believe that a buyer will probably offer more if they know there's 15 offers on a property versus 3 offers on a property, even though one of those 3 offers could be crazy high. But I think in general, people will just assume that they should offer a bit more if there's that many more offers. And I think that's why people are listing it lower to create that facade. But some people are listing it far too low and just creating a whole lot of work, extra work for not only themselves, but their sellers and those buyers agents that have no chance of getting it.
Yep, I've seen that happen.
Sorry, I'm a little passionate today.
Yes, you are, but that's okay. I'm glad. It's
It's the hat. You
It's
put
the
that
tube.
hat on.
The
and look
hat,
what
it's keeping
happened.
all the heat in my head. I'm about to explode.
yeah. Any commentary from anybody on this one?
No, I completely agree with Ian. For me though, it's always the mindset as a buyer, and I think Ian's right. You have no idea what the motivation is for any of the other buyers. To the comment that Richard made earlier, or I think it was you, Sandra, actually, that buyer, they could be on their 20th offer, hoping to finally get this one won. Therefore, they're going to put it all on the table because they've already had that unfortunate call 19 times. And it may be because of lack of proper education with regard to the market and all those things. But that buyer, you have no idea what other buyers' motivation is. So I always tell my buyers, when you're writing that offer, as long as we know we're in competition, it shouldn't make a difference if you're in competition and there's 2 offers or there's 20 offers. Put up what you're willing to spend as far as what you feel that home is valued to you. So, because at the end of the day, you never know what any of the other offers are. So if you lose by $1, or sorry, never say $1 because that would really tick you off. But if it's $1,000 versus $100,000, you weren't willing to spend anything more than that offer that you put up. That was your best and fair offer.
Okay, guys, I got a really controversial, just give me a second here, Richard. So this is very controversial what I'm going to question here right now, and I'll hear from you, Roy. So the market is very challenging right now for buyers because of the competition. Should I, as a listing agent, be double ending a deal, meaning where I am listing and I'm bringing the buyer in on competitive offers? Should I be allowed to do that in the industry, Roy?
Yes, but I think it's, I only do that if they're actually both legitimately clients. I did that once last year. I don't do a lot of double ending. But yes, because you have a qualified buyer, you're supposed to turn them away, and the seller doesn't get a chance to see that, and the buyer doesn't get a chance to put an offer on that house. So yeah, but it was also, I wanted to make sure that I could be fair to all parties. So when the offer was due, I had my buyers sign it electronically. The offer was written and time-stamped. Then I called the other agents, and they knew up front I was writing. I told them all up front. Then I called them and said, okay, my clients have written their offer. You can send yours over now. I did not see their offers until after we had written my offer, and we didn't change my offer. And my clients got it, but it was fair to all parties. So yes, you should, but it is a challenging deal to do.
What do you think, Richard?
You got to be careful. Like it comes down to that. I mean, you know, with the different relationships you can have, client, customer, transaction brokerage, you kind of look at both of those. And it's a tough one to manage through the process because everybody, especially in this market, there's so many buyers, potentially that one house. You just have to be really careful. And I think, like Roy says, you've got to be so transparent about everything that's happening, because all you need is one agent, one buyer to potentially feel that it wasn't done ethically. And, you know, they're off to the real estate commission and investigations happen. And, you know, you kind of take your chips and see where they fall when that kind of stuff happens. So I think you've got to be a lot more careful about the whole thing.
Yeah.
What do you think, Ian? Oh.
Well, Richard brought up a good point. You need to be ethical, right? I would double end every single listing that I have if I could. Simply because I know I'm going to be ethical, and if anyone does complain about it, I'm going to have things time-stamped. I'm going to have emails going back and forth, all the information to warrant the fact that this was all on the up and up. I'm not taking an offer 5 minutes before the deadline from one of my buyers. And as Richard also said, I think it was Richard who said it, that I let people know without them even asking me if they're competing, if I have a competing offer in play. I let them know, I say, by the way, you're competing, I don't have an offer in play, or I do.
And how about you, Chris?
I guess from a regulation perspective, yeah, it's allowed, but I completely agree. It is a very tricky thing that is difficult to manage. I think one of the things that we have to remember is that our industry also comes down to the perception, both within your industry colleagues as well as to the public. But I think, and it goes back to some of the points that you made at the very beginning, is how much education are we giving to our buyers? Well, if you're double ending it and you're representing the seller as a client and you're representing the buyer as a customer, well, you're not giving that buyer any education because you're not allowed to, because that education is advice, and you are not permitted to provide advice to someone who's a customer. That is part of your duties to your client. So I'm very much of the mind, I very rarely will ever double end, even prior to this crazy seller's market that we're in now. I like giving advice and education, so I will be more than happy to refer that buyer off to an experienced agent in my office who I know is going to give them that. Unless, like Roy said, unless there's that rare opportunity where it's a buyer who you know is well-informed, educated, you have a long-standing relationship with them, all parties, both the buyer and seller and any other agents that come into play are aware that you are going to be writing one of the offers. But that's something I don't do very often at all.
Yeah, nor do I.
What I said there last year when I did that, the buyers, I dealt with them previously. I've been dealing with their family for 20 years with multiple different members of their family. The seller had been a long-term client of mine. I dealt with them a few times before. And I did actually have two members of the general public who inquired on the property, were very interested in seeing it. And I just gave them both away to other agents in my office because I didn't want to put myself in a situation where they wanted to write. I'm writing for a client and I'm writing for a customer. There's no way I was going to do that. So I just gave those two buyers away, and I told them right up front why, and I gave them to two different agents in my office. Neither one ended up writing. One came close, but yeah, you're right. It is not just being ethical, but also having the perception of being ethical.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Well, guys, thank you so much for your time today. Certainly a lot of hot topics. Have a great day.
Okay,
Thanks,
take
Andrew.
care.
Have a great day.